Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Melinda Nusafora. Well, more than 3 weeks in, the Khashoggi killing continues to unravel its secrets. The international community is demanding answers and accountability for those responsible for the journalist's death. Saudi Arabia's Attorney General says it's now treating the case as a murder investigation. The declaration comes as Turkish and Saudi prosecutors start piecing together the details. Riyadh has repeatedly changed its story. The kingdom initially denied all knowledge of the writer's whereabouts when he went missing on October 2nd, but later admitted he was killed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, blaming rogue agents. Saudi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who many accuse of orchestrating the incident, has also come out saying the killing was a heinous crime, vowing to bring those responsible to justice. But this hasn't stopped the diplomatic backlash, with the European Union urging an arms embargo on Saudi Arabia and the United States promising visa restrictions and sanctions. Joining me now in our Istanbul studio is Daily Sabah columnist Hilal Kaplan. Thanks for being here. And also Borzou Daragahi is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council specialising in Middle Eastern affairs. Every day we have seen twists and turns with this case. We're going to leave the specifics of the investigation to one side and look at why. Why 3 weeks in is this still making global headlines? And as a columnist for Daily Sabah, Hilal, I'm going to start with you. What is Turkey's end game here? These regular leaks to the media that have kept this in the spotlight, is that just for the greater good of getting to the bottom of this investigation, or is Turkey hoping to use this as a little bit of leverage, perhaps against Saudi, perhaps against the United States?
First of all, it's in the headlines because it's newsworthy globally. A journalist has been killed in the consulate of his own country, so this is an unprecedented event. And secondly, yes, Turkey applied a clever strategy here, I think, before an official coming out and owning up all these evidences. They drip by drip fed the media and controlled the narrative about how this investigation will go. And if you remember, the Saudis were in flat denial at first, but then day by day, as the headlines suggested that this is a premeditated murder, they had to accept and drop the pretense and face the music.
But why? I mean, it does get to the point of the investigation. Politically, why? Is there another strategy behind this for Turkey?
When you look at the Crown Prince's actions in the last 3 years, he became the Crown Prince for the last 1 year, but we know that he is very strong on Saudi policy. The war in Yemen, the blockade on Qatar, and the Muslim Brotherhoods being designated as a terrorist group, all these things are events that Turkey does not like and agree with. So we can say that also the Crown Prince is not in a very good mood with Turkey as well, because if you remember, he made his first visit to Egypt last year as Crown Prince, and from a meeting with journalists there, it was leaked that he called Turkey, Qatar and Iran as the triangle of evil in the region. So he did not deny saying this, and it wouldn't be surprised to hear him say this, because he sees Turkey as a rival in the region that he has to combat with. And of course, Turkey's relations with its neighbor Iran also doesn't please the Crown Prince. So I guess in this sense, although there is not an overall out there conflict between the two countries, they have their differences.
And Borzou, let me put this to you. Because of those differences that Hilal has just outlined for us, is Turkey using this as a way to maybe erode some of the Crown Prince's power?
I mean, why not? Why wouldn't it? And I'm not sure if this is Erdogan's thinking per se, or a strategy developed in coordination with others. Maybe it's his communications team, sort of coming up with a very brilliant way of, day by day, not just weakening the crown prince, but also just destroying the credibility of Saudi Arabia. I mean, every single statement that they've come out with, they've had to walk back on this issue. And that is very damaging for Saudi Arabia. And this comes after spending tens of millions of dollars on communications, companies and PR firms and various crisis management strategists. And this is how badly they're sort of squirming. As I spoke to one person who said, it must be so delicious for Erdogan to be tightening the screws on MBS after all that MBS has done, all the sort of hostility and venom, and let's not forget that he's also that Saudi is funding the SDF experiment in northern Syria, which Turkey is very much against. It must be very, regardless of whether there's a strategy there. And we know that Erdogan is kind of an emotional, shoot-from-the-hip guy. Maybe he's not thinking 2-3 years ahead. It just must be kind of a good feeling of comeuppance to churn the tables, so to speak.
And also don't forget, this is unprecedented for Turkey as well. We are not some third world country where journalists got killed on a daily basis. So this is also outrageous in that sense. And Erdogan knows that Istanbul and Turkey is a safe haven for dissidents, especially from the Arab world. And he wants to make a statement.
I mean, you're also talking about she's got a really good point. You're talking about a very shishi part of Istanbul, Levant, where everyone in Turkey knows where it is. It's sort of this dream place where people want to buy a house, an apartment, and stuff like that. And this is an insult to the reputation of Turkey, of Istanbul, one that whether you're a supporter of Erdogan or you're an opponent. This is an affront. This is a violation of Turkish sovereignty.
And also don't forget, 2 days after the incident, the Khashoggi disappearance, the Crown Prince went to and gave an interview to Bloomberg and said that we don't know where he is. He left the consulate alive. You should ask Turkey. So they were very willing to put the blame on Turkey in the first place. So why not come out and say, no, you are the ones to blame.
How then, though, how much power then does that give Turkey and Erdogan when he comes out to say, we want to see these suspects be tried? Is there enough international pressure now, and can Turkey exert enough pressure to see that happen?
Turkey alone can't, of course, because, as you know, United States, especially after Trump, see Saudi Arabia as their first ally in the Middle East, the most central ally. So without US pressure, that kind of thing will not happen. And I believe they won't let the 18 suspects to stand trial in Istanbul, because in Turkey we have transparent trials open to public, and these people will probably come out and say who ordered them to do this.
What about you, Borzou? What do you think? Can we see enough international pressure led by Turkey to, one, see these people actually brought to justice, and two, see a bit more of a strong leadership from the United States, not just always siding with their ally Saudi Arabia?
I mean, on the second part, I think they're already sort of turning against it, and there is some kind of tipping point that's been reached with a lot of hostility built up over not just this incident, but also the war in Yemen that has been an issue in Congress. That, as to whether Saudi Arabia is willing to toss 18 people under the bus in order to clear MBS and have a sort of trial and then put these guys in prison for a few years, absolutely, they're willing to do that.
Has Turkey been successful in weakening him? Borzou, you first.
I absolutely think he's been weakened. And, forget about, I'll say this comment again. It's, forget about Vision 2030. It's more like Vision 1090. And that was the year that the Hashashin, the assassins, was established. So this definitely rebrands Saudi Arabia as this sort of very dark kind of very obscure place where this kind of thing can happen, where dissidents are they admitted in their own press release that there is a program, there is a general order to basically, they call it rendition, it's basically kidnappings abroad of dissidents to bring them back home. They admitted that. So, I mean, this is not a sort of modernizing kingdom by any stretch of the imagination.
Hilal, what do you think? Has Turkey's actions been effective in weakening MBS, and can he come back from this?
I think Turkey has done all that it could to weaken MBS. Not particularly for the aim of doing that, but in the end, the result was this. And like I said, without US support, I don't think the Crown Prince, I mean, it can be blocked, his accession to the throne can be blocked because he has a very strong grip on power there. I mean, politically, the intelligence agencies, the army, the police, he controls all of them. And also, as you know, he locked up some of the royal family members. So he rules with this feeling of fear over the royal family.
Hilal Kaplan from the Daily Sabah, Borzou Daragahi, Senior Fellow at the Atlantic Council. I appreciate both of your opinions. Thank you for being here on Straight Talk.
Thank you.